Happy Friday. Welcome to Jalen Jacoby. In for Jalen Rose, we have the honor of having Jemele Hill here with us today. Thanks so much for joining us, Jemele.
Thank you for having me. Always a pleasure.
And what a great day to have you, because we're just hours removed from an excellent Game 5 in the Western Conference Finals. The series that we were waiting for all year is delivering. Last night, the Rockets beat the Warriors on their home floor. In the fourth quarter, the Warriors again did not play the way that we're used to seeing them play. Kevin Durant especially was 0 for 4 in the final frame. Jemele, a lot of the blame of this Warriors loss is being put on KD's long shoulders. Do you think that he deserves the blame for the Warriors' loss?
No, because he's not the only MVP on that team, if I'm not mistaken. Look, I know a lot of people feel like Kevin Durant is low-hanging fruit, and a lot of that has to do with how he came there and the fact that he's on the Warriors, and they felt like the Warriors, by getting Kevin Durant, they had the ultimate cheat code. So, of course, if you get this guy to lock in championships for the next 20 years, and it looks like they may be on the way to being sent home, then of course he's going to be the target. But it's more than just him. It's Draymond with the late turnover.
Yep.
It's Steph. It's him. I mean, it's a collective just sort of complacency that this team has had late that we've seen from them before. The difference is they're playing a team good enough to take advantage of their mistakes.
You're right, and you remember all regular season long, the complacency was brought up, and the Warriors, oh, they're going to turn it on for the playoffs, they're going to turn it on for the finals. And there was also, when this series began, it's like, this is the series that they've been waiting for. They've heard the Rockets, that they were designed to beat us, and this is the one they've been waiting for, and it felt like that after Game 1. But now it does seem like when they need it the most, they are coming up short. Someone who is not coming up short, though, is Chris Paul. Chris Paul was hitting big shot after big shot after a cold night from James Harden. But not only that, is during this shot, a huge shot in the face of Steph Curry. Dribbling, it's a bad shot, and it went in at the end of the shot clock. And then he gives Steph Curry the shimmy, shimmy, y'all, shimmy, yam, shimmy, yay. He shimmied on Steph, and you can see Steph smiling because of it. And then Steph Curry was asked about it in the post-game press conference, and here's what he had to say.
It's a tough shot. If you can shimmy on somebody else, you got to be all right getting shimmied on. So I'll keep shimmying, and maybe he will too, so we'll see what happens.
If you shimmy, you have to be all right getting shimmied on. Do you love this quote as much as I do from Steph Curry?
I do, because he's often the shimmer. Now he's the shimmy.
Yes.
And that's sort of the rules of trash talk. That's the rules of being roasted. If you roast people all the time, you have to be willing to be roasted and just say, hey, my bag, he got me. It's a grown man's response. And a lot of times today, especially with social media and to some degree the mentality of younger athletes, they can get a little sensitive. And I'm glad that Steph had a grown man response. And if he is the grown man I think he is, his next shimmy on Chris Paul is going to be epic.
Yeah,
he might look like he's having a contusion or something.
He shimmied first, and then he added a little extra sauce to the shimmy in Game 4. I don't know what he's going to do, a handstand and shimmy next time in Game 6. But I just love the idea that I always had this saying, you can be mean if you're funny. And I feel like that was funny enough to shimmy on the shimmier that even Steph, even then with the mouth guard in a tight fourth quarter, even he cracked a smile during that. Unfortunately, not everything was great for the Rockets, especially for Chris Paul. Late in the game, he injured his hamstring. As we film this right now, we do not know exactly what the extent of the injury is or his availability for Game 6. If you were the Rockets, would you potentially sit him down for Game 6 to have him healthier for a Game 7 at home in Houston?
Well, it's levels to this. I mean, personally, as a basketball fan, that was just terrible to see. We know the things that Chris Paul has been through in his career, but this series has been so great. It has finally started to deliver. And if he's injured, and especially if the Warriors win, I don't want to be playing that what-if game all summer. And that's what people are going to do. So I hope he's able to play. He said after the game, he told the undefeated Mark Spears that he would be there the next game. But, you know, a lot of athletes say that, and then next thing you know, they're out for 2 weeks. But if you're the Rockets and he can play, you got to play him.
You do have to play him because CP3 was so big in that fourth quarter, and one of the reasons he had to be so big in that fourth quarter because James Harden quietly has been playing pretty poorly. He has missed his last, I believe it's his last 23-point attempts. Remember, this is the MVP of the league, and he has missed 20 straight threes. One of the most dangerous things about him is he can hit that step-back three. He can hit the deep three. He can hit the three off the dribble. After going between the legs 17 times, he hits the three. And he's missed his last 20. With no Steph, with James Harden not shooting well, do you think the Warriors are actually favored to win this series?
I think a lot of people are starting to probably lose a little bit of confidence in the Warriors, but it's one of those things that, as it often is with a reigning champ or a team that has the aura the Warriors do, you got to see it to believe it. You got to see them walking off the court in defeat, going home for the summer to say, okay, they did actually lose. That's actually a possibility. The thing about Harden, though, I saw that he said, you know, basically it doesn't matter to him.
So
well,
who cares?
Who cares? Of course it doesn't matter. You guys won. But can you imagine if he didn't have Chris Paul, what the narrative on him would be this series? I mean, he's already had a bad playoff narrative. He's being saved by his teammate, which is kind of the whole reason they got CP3.
Exactly, it is. And if you remember last season, you remember James Harden, Game 6 against the Spurs, he had that just oddly kind of like just wasn't really, didn't have the energy, didn't have the effort, didn't have the points. And if they lost again with James Harden performing similarly, you could say the legacy, the narrative on him completely changes. However, they did win the game, and they now have the Warriors on the brink of elimination. However, your fellow Spartan, Draymond Green, had this to say about the rest of the series. We still winning this. Book it. That's what he told The Athletic. He's a Michigander just like you. Why is he saying we still winning this? Book it.
Well, let me ask you this, Jacoby. What does he have to lose by saying it?
Well, you know, you've been in the sports game long enough to know that these guarantees don't happen that often because the athletes are experienced. They know that nothing is given. They know that anything can happen. And usually they're a little bit more considered when they talk about the potential outcomes of future games. Draymond, not that considered this time, let's be honest.
No, well, but again, they're the defending champions. It would be one thing if he said that and they weren't, okay? But he has earned the right to kind of talk his stuff, you know what I'm saying? And at worst comes to worst, they get sent home. Everybody has a few laughs. Like, remember when Draymond booked it, and then they wound up booking tickets to Cancun?
Oh, I like that. I like that. Okay. I'm going to use that joke. I'm going to use that joke if it happens.
It's all yours. It's all yours. So I don't think he has anything to lose. And sometimes, even though we tend to focus on the times it doesn't work, guarantees actually work because then your teammates feel like we have to come through so that he doesn't look stupid.
Well, when we come back, we're going to discuss the new national anthem policy from the NFL, and I cannot guarantee that we will not get canceled after that conversation.
What is the biggest animal you think you could take in a fight?
I always talked about being a guy with irrational confidence, so I have to have that in this case. I'm going elephant.
I mean, I'm just trying to think of a dollar amount that I would pay to see this fight. I think I would, like, sell one of my children just to watch you fight an elephant.
This evening, with LeBron James on the brink of elimination, we have Game 6. Starts at 8:30 p.m. Eastern. Don't forget, at 7:30 p.m. Eastern, you can see Jalen Rose in a suit on NBA Countdown. Before all of that, tonight at 6 p.m., they'll be discussing LeBron James on the brink and much more on SportsCenter. Welcome back to Jalen and Jacoby. Jamel Hill joining us in for Jalen Rose. Thank you so much for joining us here on the show. Unfortunately, you may not have the opportunity to come back because next is the Don't Get Fired topic of the day.
And now, the Don't Get Fired topic of the day.
Jamel, earlier today you published an important, thoughtful, and meaningful column on theundefeated.com about the anthem policy instated by the NFL. What do you think motivated the NFL to instill this new policy?
Well, I think number one, they were scared of Donald Trump because he has obviously used the NFL as a campaign point for him, pointing out the protesting players during the national anthem. And he's used that to kind of rally his supporters and to also, and what many people believe, as a bit of a retaliation because he didn't become an NFL owner. And I think the owners, they have been consumed by all the wrong things. I don't know if they just thought that they had to get out in front of something, but there was nothing to get out in front of, because toward the end of last season, I mean, the number of players who were protesting during the national anthem was down to single digits. It was very few. There wasn't a lot of chatter that they would be facing a multitude of protesters this season. So if they would have just left well enough alone, they would have been okay. And now they've handed Donald Trump a huge political victory, and prepare for the moment where he's at a rally and he's going to use the NFL to say, see, I got them to kneel to me.
Interesting. Now, I'm glad you brought this up, because we deal with the sports news cycle every single day. And one thing that's being overlooked is, as you mentioned, the anthem discussion was diminishing. It was dwindling towards the end of the season. There was more of a focus on football. Do you think that this new policy, which was made to kind of stop all the discussion about the anthem and to make this problem just go away, do you think that this new policy will lead to us discussing more about the anthem next season or less?
It will lead to more, because now we're going to play the game of who stays in the locker room, okay? Because part of the policy, as you know, is that they gave players the option. If you go to the field, you have to respect the anthem, but you can also choose to stay in the locker room. And so now there's going to be a lot of focus on that. And maybe, to your point about sort of, you know, kicking the bear, that a lot of players who feel as if their manhood is being challenged, as if, you know, they're being suppressed, they weren't thinking about protesting before, but now they are.
Interesting.
So that's why it was such a weak move by the NFL to do this, because you wind up poking the bear, and they're going to wind up making this a headline far longer than it would have been. And not to mention, you wonder what kind of evidence or what kind of support that this further gives to the collusion cases that Colin Kaepernick and Eric Reid have against the NFL, because they could look at this and say, well, it was such a big deal to the NFL that even though it wasn't a rule before, they made it one, which only proves why both of those guys haven't been signed.
When you mentioned the collusion cases and you mentioned Colin Kaepernick and Eric Reid's future, do you think that this new rule and this policy opens the door for Kaepernick and Reid to sign with an NFL team, or do you think it makes it more unlikely?
I don't think Colin Kaepernick is ever going to play in the NFL again. I think it's unfortunate, given that he was somebody who just took a stance to try to create awareness about social and racial injustice and criminal justice reform. I think there's a possibility maybe for Eric Reid, but I think that dwindles the longer that he goes unsigned. I think these two guys that the NFL wanted to make an example of, especially of Kaepernick, because I think he faces a lot of resentment. They feel like if he hadn't started this whole protest, then maybe it would not have led to uneasiness with corporate sponsors, fans being outraged, and all these other things that have happened as a result. So they're going to make him be the one that pays for that with his career.
All right. Well, we appreciate your thoughts on that. Now it is time for some unfounded, irresponsible speculation about free agent LeBron James. We always update on the latest unfounded, irresponsible speculation about free agent LeBron James, because it's our duty as journalists here at Jalen and Jacoby. So, Jamel, I posed a simple question to you. Should the Cleveland Cavaliers be eliminated tonight or over the weekend, does that mean that it will be the last time that we see LeBron James in a Cleveland Cavaliers uniform?
Oh, I go back and forth with this all the time. As a matter of fact, I think the last time I did this show, we speculated on where his job prospects or where he may land next season.
We do it every day. We do it every day. We've been doing it for years.
Yeah, I think that there is a desire there for him to stay in Cleveland. I don't get the sense that I got before where he was looking, really wanted to be anywhere else but Cleveland. I think he'd like to make it work in Cleveland, but I just don't think that Cleveland, I'm just not sure they will have the elements that he needs to continue to compete for championships. But then you look around and you say, okay, well, what's the best team where he can go? Philadelphia. That would be the immediate, he can win a title there. But at this point in LeBron's career, I think that's a different kind of championship chase. Going to the Lakers, okay, we see what Houston, where they are right now. We see where Golden State. Does he want to fight through that to get to the Western, to get back to the finals? So when you add it all up, Cleveland may really be his best possibility. He may be better off just trying to make it work there as opposed to jumping ship and trying to kind of recreate another championship environment.
I agree with you. Jalen Rose always says you're only as loyal as your options. And I think if there were other options for LeBron that created a clearer path or teammates that he thought were far and away better than the current ones he has, there just doesn't seem to be any sort of like easy layup options for him to move to. But that doesn't mean we will stop speculating about it irresponsibly here on Jalen and Jacoby pretty much every single day. Moving on. Alexa. Are you familiar with Alexa and the Amazon Echo? Well, it's in people's homes. And Alexa was in a home of families in Portland, Oregon, and Alexa was listening to their conversations, recording their conversation, and then sent a recording of their conversations to one of their contacts. It was all sort of a mix-up. They're saying there was certain keywords that were used that led to this conversation being recorded and then sent. Is Alexa the homegirl that you love but you just can't trust with information?
Man, I can't do it because I know some people would have Alexa, and when I heard about the concept, I immediately, maybe it's just being paranoid, that's just nothing I'm going to buy. I'm not going to have something in my home that records everything that I do. Feels a little too big brother. What I want to know about this particular case, what was the conversation? Because, Jacoby, when you think about some of the things you discuss in your house, not always politically correct. Not always information that you want everybody widely shared. So I need to know what was the conversation that was shared.
But let's be honest. Like, there is some very sensitive things that we say alone in our home. But 98% of the time, we're just talking about Wild Wild Country or whatever documentary we saw on Netflix, or complaining about each other, or arguing about the dishes or something. It was probably something very mundane and boring, let's be honest.
I don't know, man.
Well,
I don't know.
I will tell you what is not mundane and boring, and that is the life of Brazilian soccer star Ronaldinho. We'll talk about him and his 2 fiancées after this. Welcome back to Jalen Jacoby. Happy Friday. In for Jalen Rose, we have the honor of being graced with the presence of Jamel Hill. Thanks so much for doing the show, Jamel. Time for Soft Move or Boss Move. Do you remember Brazilian soccer star Ronaldinho? He was a big deal about 5 or 6 years ago. Well, guess what? He's been very busy lately. There are reports that Ronaldinho got engaged. Congratulations to him. But he didn't get engaged to one woman. He got engaged to 2 women. And there are now reports, which he denies, that he is going to marry both of them in the same ceremony in August. Soft move or boss move, marrying 2 women at the same time?
It's a soft move. Look, let me ask you this, Jacoby. You're the only one on this show right now who has a wife, right?
Okay.
So could you really handle 2 of them? Like, most men can't handle one woman.
Listen, let's not judge Ronaldinho. Maybe he can. I'm going to say, it won't work for me. It wouldn't work for me. I'm not sure that my wife would be excited about this proposal. However, if it works for them, more power to them. Also, you get to save on the weddings. You know what I mean? 2 for 1. It's like 50% off right there. Weddings are expensive, Jamel. They really are. They really are.
But this is, it'd be one thing if you said he was going out like Lou Williams with 2 girlfriends. Then I'd say boss move. But you're talking about 2 people you're making a lifetime commitment to, theoretically. That's a lot of pressure. That's a lot of pressure.
That's a lot. Yeah, that's a lot.
And that, look, and if it doesn't work out, is that 2 people who could take half your money? Like,
yeah, what are you left with? You're left with 0. My math isn't great, but if 2 other people take half your money, then you have 0.
Come on now.
Great point from you.
You can't split that 3 ways.
Great point from you. Moving on, the Podfather, Bill Simmons, one of the greatest human beings on the face of the planet. We would not have this show without him. Had J.J. Redick on his podcast, and J.J. Redick told this story about Jaylen Brown.
When we played in London, Jalen was guarding me for that game, and at one point in the second half, I'm going to cuss on your show, I'm sorry, but he called me a and I looked at him and was like, I don't play that. And he's like, oh, okay, I'm sorry. So that was my only interaction. We played them 11 times this year, and that was my only negative interaction with anyone on their team.
Calling someone a curse word and then immediately apologizing afterwards. Soft move or boss move?
Well, it's a soft move on Jaylen Brown's part. It's a boss move on J.J. Redick's part because he checked him. What I would like to know, see, I love how he kind of undersold it. He said, I told him, oh, I don't play that. Like, I have a feeling it was more like, hey, you know I don't play that. You know what I'm saying?
So, sir, Mr. Brown, with all due respect, I do not play that.
Right.
They were in London. You know what I mean? They were in London, so maybe he gave it like a little British spin on it. I do like that Jaylen Brown was just like, oh, wait, oh, you don't play that? Okay, my bad. I'm sorry. I apologize. I'm sorry. I didn't know you didn't play that. It's like somewhere there's a Homie the Clown joke in there, but I just can't get it. One thing I always love in the NBA offseason are when grown NBA players take advantage of young children. Rudy Gobert was in Guadalupe, and he was there for a race for life, and this happened. Here he is playing defense. Get out of here! Look at how excited everybody is. Soft move or boss move, blocking a child's shot like they are actually competing in an NBA game.
Oh, that's definitely a boss move. Way to raise these kids right. Part of the reason why some of these younger kids can't take any criticism, don't know enough about failure, is because they didn't have their shot stuffed down their throat when they were that age. So I love it. Keep
it is a
doing
boss move. Finally, we have an update on the world's largest orgy. It was set to happen in the Embassy Suites in Las Vegas, but the Embassy Suites has now backed out. They will not host the event. Soft move or boss move, not wanting to be part of this historic event.
It is a boss move.
I'm not even going to ask you to
Germs.
follow up on that
Just
in
germs.
any
That's all I'm
way,
gonna say.
shape, or form. I'm just going to thank you for joining us on the show today, Jamel. You can catch Jamel on theundefeated.com. We'll be back on Monday with another show to step to. Don't forget to subscribe to our podcast anywhere you listen to podcasts.
We want people